Hello, 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 everyone. How is everyone doing this July? For those of you that are in the US, I'm sure that you are, recovering from the July 4th holidays. I know that Canada Day was earlier this week as well, or last week, and we're just in the midst of summer. So, welcome. I did consider not doing the founders check-ins during the summer, but I felt like I was going to continue. One, because I think that momentum's always a good thing, but two, because businesses don't stop just because the summer is here. So we are going to do a founders check-in today, and we are going to do one in August, the first Thursday of August. So just for everyone to know, we are still intact, but we have some really fun things happening for the fall, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the founders check-in. So stay tuned. Hello, Andrea. So good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so for those of you who are new, my name is Kerry-Ann Powell, and I'm the founder of Trafalgar Strategies, and I am also a business strategist. So, what do we do here at Trafalgar Strategies? Well, we know that running a business can sometimes feel like managing a chaotic tornado. Yes, am I right? I know I'm right because, I've heard it from so many of my clients. And hey, Shirley, oh my gosh, so good to see you. Oh my goodness, all the good people are here. So yeah, so we know that running a business can sometimes feel like managing a chaotic tornado. Yes, so we here at Trafalgar Strategies really help business owners and founders really run their businesses smoothly so that they can thrive in business and in life. Because in the end, isn't that what it's about? So, for those of you that are new, I have a little short video that kind of explains a bit about myself and how we work with clients. Is actually a video that we did for folks that want to learn how to want to bring me on board to speak. But I think it's a great video, and one of my really good friends did the video, so I always like showing it off. So like sit back, watch for a minute or two, and then we're gonna get started. Elegantly balanced between the needs of the audience, SMEs, and Fortune 500s, and that is no easy feat. My area of expertise is in business strategy, and I work primarily with smaller companies. And I believe we have to first acknowledge that they have a unique set of frustrations that are very different even within the same industry. When I'm speaking, I like to carry the audience on a three-step journey. I offer a bit of humor so they can begin to see that they're not alone in this topsy-turvy world of business that they're in. This peace of mind elevates them above the day-to-day so they can begin to envision what their business could look like, implementing new strategies and ideas. And then finally, provide practical tools that they can implement immediately with their teams. I mean, in the end, isn't that what we're all here for? Looking for a way to thrive? That location that we filmed it is this wonderful Black-owned restaurant in Lisbon. And so if you're heading to Portugal, you're going to be in Lisbon. Check it out. The guy is a wonderful. His name is Charles, but he's French, so it's pronounced like some really fantastic way. But if you're ever going to Lisbon, let me know, and I will give you some great ideas. Terry, how are you doing, my man? So good to see you. It's so good to see you. Okay, so what are we doing today? A couple things. First, if you are currently doing your scaling and growth plan, and we're at the end of second quarter, ending the beginning of third quarter, and you feel like you're not executing well, and you thought maybe you might want to sort of like run it by someone, I'm happy to do that. So Lovely is going to be putting the link in the chat. You all know Lovely, you know Edgar, they've been with us. Let's give them a hand and thank them for everything they do to make sure that this the founders check-in works. I could not be doing this on my own. But Lovely's going to put the link in, the Calendly link, so you can schedule something if you'd like to chit chat with me about your strategy and how you're executing. So, you've seen this slide before, this idea of the big idea methodology. I've shown it many different times. And the reason why I'm showing it to you today is because I want you to understand what we're going to be talking about today. So obviously, I believe there are 8 components that are really important for businesses to consider when they want to think about thriving. And one of them is obviously the one that we're focusing on today, which is the purple one on the bottom left, exceptional execution. So, we've got strategy creation. We did a lot of talk about that. We've talked a lot about leadership. We've talked a lot about all different topics. But today we're really going to focus on exceptional execution. Physical therapy won't be able to see the screen, but I can hear you. Okay, fantastic. Yay. Oh, heart to you as well. And I hope you're doing okay. Hope you're doing fine. So we're not gonna go into strategy creation. We did a founders check-in around strategy creation. I feel like it was pretty exhaustive. Anybody was attending that one? If you were, just put that, yeah, you were there. You got the strategy execution. The strategy creation founders check-in. So we're not going to talk about how to formulate your strategy today. We're talking about how to exceptionally execute and implement that strategy. And I know we talked a little bit about the execution part of it in the strategy formation part, but this is a really important thing that I think deserves an entire sort of conversation around it. So if you did not get a chance to be a part of the founders check-in for the strategy creation, Lovely's going to put the link in there and you just go through and click it and then watch it after this, because I really do recommend you do that first and then stay with us today, but it will help you create your strategy better. Okay, so I just want to give you a sense. We're focusing on execution implementation today, not creating a strategy. I just wanted to give you that. Okay, so let's look at what this really means. 67% of well-formulated strategies fail due to poor execution. When I saw that statistic, I saw it bearing out with many of my clients and even as I run my business, but when I saw that statistic, like, oh my Lord, like, you go through all this great stuff, you create a strategy for your business and your organization, and bam, you still can't execute because of poor execution. And that really just really bothered me, because all the great ideas that I have heard, all the wonderful plans, all the strategies that I have helped to formulate with clients, and I've seen with people who are doing great things in business, and to think that they're not executing. And by the way, this is not a small business issue. 40% of companies are classified as adrift in terms of strategy creation and execution. Strategy execution. And that was a study done by Kerry-Ann, which is a part of the PwC network. So, 40%, oh my goodness, it's too high, where you're just adrift. You have this thing. Now, of course, there are many reasons why this happens, but what are the implications of having a poor execution? Well, I think, let's talk about what exactly strategy execution is. Strategy execution gap is the term that people out there in the business world talk about. It's a thing, right? It's not just small business. These are Fortune 500 companies still have a strategy execution gap problem. So don't feel like, oh, well, it's because I'm a small business. No. This is a thing across the board. And by the way, if you feel like you're in that, little 40% where you feel like you're not executing well, just put a little, yep, that's me, I'm dealing with it too, in the chat, just so that we all can, feel better that we're not alone. Just, give yourselves, give each other the grace to say, yes, I am not executing. Particularly when you start thinking about when we're moving into second and third quarter, and you now need to start looking at those numbers and those priorities, right? So if you feel like you're part of that 40% of companies that are a little bit adrift, just say, yep, that's me. And it'll help us all feel better. But nonetheless, so strategy execution gap It basically refers to the difference between a company's strategic targets and the actual results that are achieved. So we said we're going to do this. End of second quarter, we come up with this. The gap is here. How do we fill that gap? Now, 90 the thought process in most business worlds is that, if you are not hitting 90% of your objectives, then you are dealing with a strategy execution gap problem. Now, of course, you may have a different standard in your business. You may say, well, if I hit 90, I'm okay. If I hit 85, I'm okay. If I hit 80, I'm okay. You determine really amongst your, like, in your business, what you think is an okay gap from where it is you said you wanted to be and where it is that you end up resulting. And then, of course, this determines whether or not you're looking at it from an annual perspective, from a quarterly perspective. But the point here is that if the gap exists, it's a problem. And however large the gap is that you're comfortable with, you determine that. But I really recommend that if you start inching lower than 90%, then make it a priority. All right. So what are the implications of having a gap between actually what you said you were going to do and what you're able to do in your business? Well, there's the financial implications, right? You fail to achieve the expected top line revenue. I mean, we're in business, right? We have, I mean, Terry's doing some really great things on in his organization. They do work around, they use motorcycles to be able to help people through various different things. And Terry, I'm butchering what it is you do, but he does fantastic things. Look him up, you'll see, right? Shirley's doing some really great things. Andrea is a pastor and she's also a therapist, and she's doing some great things. So my point here is that you all are doing some really amazing things. And if you just in the chat, just write down what it is that you do, what's the name of your business, who you serve, and what you do. And I'm going to sort of tell everyone, because I feel like I just kind of butchered that a bit. Particularly Shirley, I didn't say what you were doing. But nonetheless, everyone's doing great things. But in the end, we are businesses. And if there's no financial revenue coming in, or if you're missing your top line revenue, it's a problem. So that is one major implication for having a strategy execution gap problem. Okay. Another financial implication is increased execution costs through poor planning and inefficient use of resources. Yeah. So you are, it's costing you money, more money, that to even exist in the world as a company, while you're not hitting your top line revenue, which means, guess what, you're not scaling. So these financial implications are huge, they're massive, and they should not be taken for granted if you're not executing as exceptionally as you would. There's also an organizational implications, right? Think about it. If you are not hitting your goals all the time, your team is going to get demotivated. It's like, oh, here we go again, another quarter where we didn't hit our goals. Not okay. And if you're still a solopreneur, you are going to get demotivated. And that causes a huge problem in the company if your team and you are feeling demotivated. And on the last part would be the poor reputation. If you're not executing, because it's not just execution around revenues and sales, it's also execution around strategies around how you have client fulfillment. So if you are not executing it to the level that you want to, you develop a reputation for not being able to execute. If you're trying to get investors, if you're trying to get loans, if you're trying to get more clients, if you're trying to get a bigger stage, whatever it is that you do, you definitely don't want to have a poor reputation for not executing. So these are some really major problems. Now, overall, though, let's take a look at this grid that I'm going to show you. If you are all right, JLW Medical Management Consulting, we bridge the equity gaps between mental health providers and their patient population by providing both with resources and opportunities needed for optimal success. Thank you very much, JL Medical Management Consulting. And Shirley, Destiny Speaks. That's right. Okay, how could I have forgotten that? Corporate Training Collective. We book speakers and trainers for corporate contracts. Exactly, Shirley. Chicago, right? That's right. So if you guys want to speak, I don't know if you have openings, Shirley. I mean, that's pretty high, but reach out to Shirley along those lines as well. Okay, so let's look at this grid. All right, so obviously strategy on the left, implementation on the top. Okay, if you have an inferior strategy and you have superior implementation, your company will die slowly because even though you're executing well, the strategy sucks. So it's just going to die, but real slow. If you have an inferior strategy and inferior execution, your company will die quickly, which I actually think is better because then you can be able to say, okay, clearly let's move on and the next step, right? Now, if you have superior implementation, superior strategy, this is the money place, right? This is the sweet spot. You are thriving, you're moving, you're going. If you have superior strategy, but inferior execution, look what happens. Your company just survives. That's like lukewarm. Any Christians in the Bible talk about, you get if it's lukewarm, they'll spew you out. It's just like it's just not flavorful. It's not appetizing. It's just surviving. I know most of you are in the business of wanting to thrive. So I think that when you have an inferior execution, it's just your company success. No, leave that up there. I want to read that. But I just want to finish the thought. But you want to make sure that you're moving towards superior implementation so that your company can thrive. Terry has his name of his company is Ride for Change, Ride for Hope Foundation, and they use motorcycling as a platform to help students get to and through college. I mean, isn't that amazing, right? Thanks, Terry, for putting what you do. So this is what implementation and strategy look like if you are doing it in an inferior way. So how do we actually fix this? Everything in business and in life starts with what do you want? What do you want? What did you say? What were the big things you said you were going to do at the beginning of the year, January 1, that you were going to achieve in your business come now, come third quarter, that you wanted to have done? And even more so, what do you want your company to be? Like deep down inside, like not this is the safe strategy or the safe goal, but what is that BHAG we talk about in the strategic planning founders check-in that we have? And again, the link is there. Like, what's your big BHAG? Like in 10 years, what do you want the company to look like? Do you want to have, multi-million-dollar company? So what do you want? Then how do you plan to get there? All right. Everything starts with what do you want and how do you get there? Once you know what you want and how do you get there, then I want to posit to you today because I know it's summer and I was thinking about not doing a founder's check-in today. I'm like, I'd rather be at the beach, But I know that it can feel like, particularly at this time of the year, the slowdown. But I would like to posit to you to ask yourself, how badly do you want it? Not just you, but how badly do you and your team want it? The thing you decided you wanted in January 1, the thing you decided you wanted to do as your BHAG for the 15 years. Those are the things that we need to get you to the place where your brain comes up with better ways to execute and actually better strategies as well and better things that you really want. So what do you want? How are you going to get there? And how badly do you want it? That's the first part. Once you get to that place, then you can start saying, okay, how do I execute this better? So, how do we get to what are the real, the actual ways of getting to what we want? I believe exceptional execution is the only way. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about perfection, perfect execution. Perfection, as we all know, is the enemy of progress. But exceptional execution, what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're saying in order for you to be able to get, so Shirley, for instance, in your case, I'm assuming, what your business might be. Say you need to get more corporate clients to place the speakers, or maybe you need more speakers, and so you have a tactic that you use to get more speakers or to get more corporate clients, however you do it. So say you said you're going to have 10 meetings this month for with corporations. Okay, let's say that's your goal. Exceptional execution is you doing whatever it takes to get the 10 meetings. Perfection, which I don't agree with, is you doing the best possible meeting you possibly have, the most perfect meeting. We are all human. So you might fumble. You might have a meeting and you like are not, like, you say something that's not the right thing, or maybe out of the 10 meetings, 8 of them are like right on, but 2 of them, oh my gosh, I was like, you're like not perfect on your game. That's not the point. That's about optimization and innovation, which is one of the components of the big idea, right? The more you do, the more you do, the more you optimize, the more you innovate in your business, right? But exceptional execution is saying, come hell or come high water, I am making those 10 calls. I'm having those 10 meetings. So if it's the middle of the month, right, and you only have 5 meetings, then you got to do something to make sure that you have an additional 5 meetings, whatever that looks like for you. That's exceptional execution. So I just want to make sure that we're clear about the difference between exceptional execution and perfection. Okay. So, all right, let's move on. So what are the obstacles that proper, execution that keeps you from exceptionally executing? So there's a few that I have found. All right. First, no strategy. All right, no strategy. So there you go, done, period. If you don't have a strategy that's written down, formulated all the way down to the KPIs and your daily behaviors, I'm going to really recommend you go back to the founders check-in and for the strategy event and sort of take a look at that. All right. So no strategy, that's a big problem. Secondly, you are mistaking your strategy. You're mistaking a strategy for a tactic. We're all business people here. We all know the difference between a strategy and a tactic. And maybe if you could just sort of put that in the chat as to the difference between a strategy and a tactic. But here's the thing that I've noticed is that even though we know it, we sometimes behave as if we do, as if our tactics are our strategy. The strategy is the overall strategy to get you from to your objectives. Okay, the tactic is whatever little thing, very a thing that you can pivot, the thing that's very agile that can get you to getting to your objectives. So you may decide that one tactic. Yes, I agree, and that is my monthly goal. Yeah. Shirley. See, I don't know. We're just right there. So perfect. Fantastic. So your tactic is something that's, let's say you want to this year is you want to one of the part of your objectives is to be able to become a more premier sought after company. What does premier sought after company look like? That's the strategy. That's the core goal. How are you going to get there? You're going to elevate the way that you run your client fulfillment. Increase the amount of eyes that see your business. There may be different strategies that are working. The tactics then would be, okay, I'm going to be having some high level, sort of invitation only receptions throughout the country. That's a tactic. So if you are using that tactic, not a strategy, and you realize, oh, wait a minute, that tactic's not working, and we've done our due diligence and we're exceptionally executing, then you can pivot to a new tactic. But that's not your full strategy. The strategy is you're trying to elevate and become more premier and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'm sorry. I just beat a dead horse. I get it. But I think that's really important. The third thing I see happening is not tracking. Hello, not tracking. We talk a lot about that in the founder check-in for strategic planning, but really not tracking. And again, I really, if you are going to use spreadsheets to track, more power to you. Spreadsheets are better than nothing. But I also really recommend looking into some of the software programs that I have mentioned in the past. That and I'm going to actually have a really great announcement around one of them before, at the end of this the session today. But really, we've always recommended Cascade. We've always talked about rhythm systems. We've talked about I believe, what's another one that we've looked at? Oh, EOS Worldwide. We have now developed a relationship with 90IO. So we've actually imported our entire system into 90IO, and you can use that. So if you want to use that through what we're doing, feel free to, we get a little coins from it, but I just really think it's one of the better ones. So you can email us and let me know. I agree, Shirley, having a CRM is necessary. So you can do the spreadsheets if you want. It's better than nothing, but create a type of platform where you're tracking every single thing, meaning all your KPIs, everything you're doing daily, like every single thing daily. If you're not, then I don't really know how you know how your execution is going. All right, so not tracking. Another one is no systems or processes to support the execution of it. So one day you're all doing this, the next day your team's doing that, the other day is doing that. There's a way and a process in the system by how you do things that's really so important. I know you all know this, but I'm just telling you, these are the obstacles to proper execution of an exceptional execution. Okay, and then another one is allowing obstacles to derail the plan. I mean, yes, something is going to go wrong. Yes, something is going to go wrong. Can we all admit that something is going to go wrong? So, what do we do then? I do recommend that, just like, if you like, there's the laws of physics. Yes, there is the inertia. So something at rest stays at rest. And then there's momentum. Something in action is going to stay in action. So if something happens in the business and it just really derailed you, it was like you thought it was going to happen, it didn't happen, don't spend too much time dwelling on it. Pivot real fast, like quickly do things. And the more we do it, the more we optimize, the more we do it faster. But because the more you slow down, the more you slow down. And then therefore you're like, what are we doing? Oh my God. Next thing you know, your whole strategy is a miss and you've derailed the entire plan. Another obstacle that I have found through exceptional execution is jumping from one tactic to another too soon before you haven't actually executed it. So remember I mentioned, yes, if the tactic isn't working, then you do want to pivot to whatever ones if it's not working, but only if you have done it enough time to know it's not working. But I've got a couple clients early days when they start working with me and they're like, oh, I did it for 2 months and then then we stopped. I often tell the story about when we were building the memorial, and a lot of people don't know this, but the memorial the idea came from these for the Martin Luther King Memorial. For anyone that's listening, some of you know that I was a part of that, that I led the fundraising effort. And so, but a lot of people don't know that, but the idea to build a memorial came from these, three gentlemen who were members of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. They were sort of sitting in one of their kitchen tables and sort of said, "Hey, why don't we build a memorial to Martin Luther King?" Now, of course, that was before the holiday happened. Do you know, a lot of people don't know this, but these gentlemen would go to the Hill consistently, persistently, for year in, year out, asking, meaning Hill, meaning Capitol Hill, for those of you who are not American, asking members of Congress and senators to agree to sign into law the fact that they could then have the permission to build a memorial on the National Mall, which is basically, for those of you who are not American, that's where all of our, like, the Capitol, the White House, that's the area where everything is built. So it's federal land. It was like 15 to 20 years before they were able to get permission to do that. 15 to 20 years of them going on the Hill and talking to people and saying, let's do this. Can we get permission? We really think it's a good idea. We can do this. And then to the point where then we're able to get it and then sign it. And then, of course, at that time, President Clinton was in office. So when you are implementing a tactic and it's 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work, I'm done. You're actually shooting yourself in the foot, because you're basically saying you're not giving yourself enough time to be able to see if the tactic can work. So on one side, you don't want to stay too long doing a tactic that's not working, but at the same time, you don't want to be jumping from one to another before you're able to know if it's actually working. And then I get the next one would be, the other obstacle would be, you're not leading well. You, the founder, is not leading well. I know I'm stepping on your toes right now, but I have found that many times leaders are not leading well when it comes to projecting their strategic plan over to you're welcome, Terry, right? I mean, Terry and his group were was one of the folks that, organization really helped us to fundraise and did a whole ride all across the country, of black motorcyclists from all over to Washington D.C. to raise money. And so Terry knows the deal. But you're welcome, Terry. I don't think everyone really knows that story, but it really gives you the idea of persistence. Yes. So so anyway, not leading well, what does that mean? Meaning, are you leading yourself well? I know that this doesn't feel comfortable to ask yourself that question, but we all know when we're not leading well. We're not leading ourselves well, we're not leading our team well, and we're not leading our organization well. So it's difficult to get an exceptional execution when you are not leading well. People need to be able to know what's the direction the company is going, what is the direction that, and can you get out of bed to go work out, or, even your own leadership. And it's difficult. We do get to times when we're not feeling our best, and that's just human, but that is an obstacle to exceptional execution. So really tighten your leadership up. Look, we're not all born leaders coming out of the womb. So maybe just getting some leadership classes to sort of tighten up, read some leadership books. Leadership is really an important part to being able to move from one area, from one thing to another. Okay, moving an idea from idea to execution. That's a big deal. So, you think about people like Dr. King and the folks who were leading the civil rights movement, or you think about some of the big movements in the world. It took leadership to get them done. So, yeah. And okay, so not leading well, and then I guess would the last one would be settling. That was when I mean settling. So, we talk about the 90%. If you're not hitting that 90%, if you're saying 70% is fine for me, I just want to make sure that you're not settling, right? And I know it's very difficult to be like, okay, well, this is how it is. I wanted to get 10 calls this month, but I can only get 5, so I guess that's all it is. That's settling, unless you have some true in data to prove that you can only get to 5 calls, then you're settling. So it's about lifting your standard and saying, I am not going to go to a lower standard from what it is that I want in my business and for myself and for my team. So that's what I mean by settling. Okay. So those are some of the obstacles. So how do we actually exceptionally, now that we know the obstacles, how do we actually exceptionally execute? Here's 6 capacities that I recommend you look into for your business. These are bigger capacities that you want to spend some time diving into and building in your business. And as you begin to put in, I would say, some of the strategic objectives within your business, actually build the critical capacities. So one of them is alignment. We've got responsibility and accountability. The second one, we've got communication. The third one. Fourth, we're looking at, how are you monitoring and tracking? Then we've got, of course, the values and the culture in your business. And then, of course, leadership. So let's dive a bit into that. What exactly do we mean by alignment? All of you know this, but we're going to dive a little bit into it. If you have developed a strategic plan all on by yourself, you, the business owner, and it's all cute, but your team wasn't a part of developing that, or you haven't then you need to bring them along. There's no alignment between the what it is, the plan is, and not just the plan itself, but the future objective, the vision of the company. You don't have any buy-in, any alignment, and maybe you created your plan without any true heart and soul. So maybe it's a plan that you're not actually fully aligned with yourself, not to mention your team. So alignment is one of the big reasons. Now, of course, this is coming from these elements can happen in small businesses as well as large businesses, okay? But you know in your company what alignment looks like for you. So if you don't feel as if there's an alignment happening, if you like sit down and it's like, am I fully aligned with this strategic vision? Is my team fully aligned? Then in your leadership capacity, you need to step in and say, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board. This is not for naught. Yes, it looks pretty and we did it great, but no one's aligned to this. So we need to create alignment around it, and then making sure that your departments are aligned, their activities are aligned, your team is aligned, you're aligned. If not, go back to the and look, if you're a solopreneur, then I would really, and you don't feel aligned with your strategic objectives, go back to what your life plan is. Think about, what do I want my life plan to look like? Then look at your strategic objectives and see if it fits in to the life plan. Okay. All right. So then a second capacity you want to pay attention to is responsibilities and accountabilities. Oh no, they are all if everyone was responsible for something in the business, that means no one is responsible for something in the business. Now, of course, again, if you're running a business on your own, then you're responsible for everything. And then you need to kind of begin to think about, we talk about like, are you right? Are you behaving? Are you doing work that's in the business, or are you doing work that's on the business, and being able to sort of spice out your time? Okay. But say you have a team and there are some things that need to happen. If someone is not responsible for the thing, then no one is responsible for the thing, and no one will do the thing. And so it's important for any growing business to begin to think about who's responsible, who's accountable. Even if you have contractors that you bring in the business, um, a part of you leading and growing your business is being able to figure out, how can you offload some of the responsibilities of the business onto those folks. Because in the end, then that's a capacity issue and nothing's going to get done. And if you are thinking that you can build your company by yourself for the rest of your life, that's going to be another discussion, because I really don't see how, depending on how direction you want to go in, but you do need to start thinking about building your team. Okay, third capacity is communication. So now, if you're communicating with your team, but they're somehow still not getting it, that means you're the one who's not communicating. Okay. It's all about your capacity to communicate and your team's capacity to communicate with each other. But communication is key. Now, if you're running a business on your own, you have to be communicating some form of communication to yourself. Just because you have it in your head doesn't mean that you can say, oh, it's all in my head, so I know what the strategy is, I know what the objectives are, I know what the tactics are, I know what the KPIs are, and then therefore we're just going to keep it moving. You are still operating as different roles in your business. So however you can communicate that to your team or communicate it to yourself, communication is vital. Or else then no one knows what's going on and everyone's just doing something on their own, and there's no connection, no connectivity, and therefore there is no execution. Another capacity that must be built into the company is the monitoring, tracking, and reporting. I think I beat that horse down a few slides ago, but it's one of the capacities that you want to build in your company: how you monitor, how you track. Remember, one of the things that I really like, one of the tools I'm going to be that I've been really partnering with is 90IO, and we've really developed a whole thing within there that is just how I teach strategic planning and how I teach execution. So if you want to do that, send me an email. So that's one. But if you don't have a capacity within your business on how you track, how you monitor, how you report, and you're like, oh yeah, everything is good, then you know what ends up happening? Fudging happens, smudging happens. Yeah, I think we hit the goal, sort of, kind of, no, then that's where you have slippage. Okay. And then the other capacity is the values, behaviors, and culture. Now, we talked a little bit about this in the strategic planning part, how to begin to think about what your values are in your company. And because once you scale, then and things get crazy, then you're gonna leave those values behind. Yes. So you have to be really clear about what your values are and what are the behaviors that you're permitting in your company and what is the culture of your company. That is an important capacity when it comes to actually exceptionally executing. And even if it's just you need to know, no, this is how I behave. This is how I execute. This is how I fulfill. This is how I hit my goals. If we don't have this, then we stay until it's done. Whatever the value is, this is how we treat our customers. Whatever all of that culture is, this is how we appreciate our team. These are the words that we use. All of those things do support the execution of your strategy. And then, of course, there is your leadership and your change management. We talked about leadership being a really important part of how you show up in your business. These capacities that we talked about, these six capacities, are really so vital in building, but they're a bigger conversation within how you build your company. Okay. But what I'd like to leave you with are some things you can do right now, today, that you can implement that can begin to turn the tide a bit on your exceptional execution. So these are things you can do today, not just so these critical capacities. I want you to start thinking about them and building on them and developing them in a broader sense in your business. But for the next slides, these are the things that you can put in today that will get you moving in towards changing the tide of that strategic execution gap. Okay. So simple things. First thing, deadlines. I know you have them. I know you know them. I know we all have them. But I would like for you to look at deadlines a bit more as they're just non-negotiables. We all slip with deadlines, right? We slip. However, when you establish a deadline, do it. Well, first of all, create a deadline. If you have things in your business, you're like, okay, we need to have this done by this. These are very important where we have milestones and deadlines. If you say, okay, have we're going to do 50 special events over the year. Okay, over the next year. Maybe 50 is a bit much. 25 special events for my high level corporate clients over the next 12 months. Yes. And you said, okay, in order for me to know what these events look like, then I need to be able to have secured the event location by this date, have this done by that date, have this done by that date. Remember, we're talking about execution, exceptional execution. Let those dates be real. Don't fudge. Just like if you don't hit the date, understand why the date's not hit and fix the problem. Deadlines are our friends. They really are. And if you have a team, allow for them to determine what the deadline is for the things that they're responsible for so that they are owning the deadline. Okay. Or you're all creating the deadline together and not just, oh, here's the deadline and make it work type of thing. Okay. Secondly, connect your tactics with your objectives. What do I mean by that? We have the objectives. Those are the bigger sort of things that are going to move your strategy forward. Yes. And then you've got your tactics. If you have an objective that you is an orphan objective that doesn't have any tactics that are connected to them, then you don't have an objective because, well, you don't have a tactic to implement the objective. So like look and see, do an audit. Yes. All your tactics that you currently do in your business, and just simply say, okay, this tactic gets me to this objective, this tactic gets me to that objective, and this one, and draw lines if you need to. If you find that there are tactics that you are doing in your business that have no objective connected to it, you are wasting time. Stop doing it. Or if you find you have objectives that you don't have, that don't have tactics, then you must create one, because objectives don't are not going to happen. It's just a good simple way of saying, what am I doing in the business, and how does that connect to the objectives, so that it can move the strategy going forward. All right. Another thing that you can do today is to develop a playbook for the most important tactics. Now, I used to be a big fan of create a playbook for every single tactic you're doing, and every single objective, and every system and process. And I've kind of become a bit more less anal retentive about this. I still believe your company should have playbooks for all of these things. But think about the most important ones for your business. Yes? And think about how, so for instance, sales and marketing. We all, as small businesses, everyone needs to continue to grow. Okay. We did a sales process mapping founders check-in a few months ago. Lovely if you could put that into the chat. We'd love to encourage you to go and check that out. It's one way of creating a process and a system and a mapping for sales and marketing. In that, we talk a lot about, sort of the playbook. We don't go into detail on how to create a playbook, but it does talk a lot about sort of how the comes into play. We recommend that you just think about some of the most important tactics and objectives that you have in your business, and develop a playbook for them. And then as time goes on, you build another one, and then another one, another one. That way you have all these playbooks. And when your team gets bigger and bigger, you don't need to tell everyone how to do it. We all go to the playbook. We know how to do this. Yep. And that way, that's one thing you can do to implement this week. Okay. Another thing you can implement today is integrating your strategy into everyday activities. So I talked about of connecting your objectives with your tactics, and that's one thing. But the other thing is to do an audit of your daily behaviors and say, okay, thinking about all my daily behaviors, what are they? Are they connected to my strategy? Or thinking about the strategy and looking all the way down to your daily behaviors, you and your team, and say, okay, because you guys are busy. I'm sure you are. I mean, we're busy here, but sometimes I have to always be thinking, okay, so Edgar's doing this, Lovely's doing that, I'm doing this. What are we actually, is this going to actually get us to the point where we need to do it? So you have to always be auditing your daily behaviors and making sure they're connected to your strategy, integrating your strategy into your daily behaviors and daily activities. Yeah. Another thing you can do today is begin to create a game to incentivize execution. I know we all love a game. We all love a game. So make it fun. And one of the things that I heard this great example from Jim Collins. One of the things that he does in his company is whenever they're having an event in their company. Jim Collins is that guy who's written the book Entrepreneur 2.0. He also is Built to Last. He's a great business author. So I heard him speaking once, and he was talking about how one of the things that they do in their business is, so like if they have an event, right, and they like to have the event sorted and completed 2 weeks prior to the event launching, and they do these events quite a bit. So let's see, they have, say like, T minus whatever. So they want to be able, in order to be able to get to T minus 14 days, I guess, let's assume it's 14 days. That means everything needs to be in place by that T minus 14 days point. Now, say for instance, they noticed that they were fudging their dates and saying, okay, it would be like T minus 13. They were like fudging it like T minus 10. And so what they did was they put a big clock on the wall, right? And they're like, okay, the person who's responsible for this event, yes, is the organizer of this event. Obviously, everyone has their own goals. They are responsible, they're like the project manager. They're responsible for making sure that everyone hits that T minus, because if they don't, they're gonna like they were gonna track. So they would say, okay, we want to hit we want to own exceptional execution. We want to be able to hit all the T minus 14 for 100 times, yes, or 10 times to make it easy for you right now. So we're not going to slip for 10 events. If they slipped, even if they were up to 9 events, they got right under the T minus 14, and they slipped that one time, they had to reset the clock. So they basically were saying that they're going to like hit that, and every single event they do, they needed to be completely sorted by 2 weeks prior. And what happens is it gives, and of course, everyone who was in charge of that one event, they're like, I'm not going to be the one that's going to drop the ball, right? So you give yourself some games, some ideas to keep yourself saying, I'm not going to be the one to drop the ball, or whatever games you can come up with to get you and your team excited about exceptionally executing, so that once it's done, you can all feel good. You can ring that bell. You can do whatever it is that you celebrate. And I believe in celebrating. So celebrate well, to know that you have accomplished the thing. And you know what he said? He said after that, basically, because they were slipping all the time. He's like, when they implemented that game, they had literally have never, never not hit T minus 14 ever once they started that game. And it's been years now for them. So it's a way to practice the muscle of optimizing in your company and making things perfect. But we're not trying to get to perfection. We're trying to get to exceptional execution. But what ends up happening is the more you do, the better you become. Yes? So that's one way to do it. And then I would say another thing to think about and to think is to keep things simple. So the way that you can do it, the most simplest way that you can execute in your business, pick the most simplest way. So you don't want to get too bogged down with complexities. So if you're using a CRM that's working for you, if spreadsheets are working for you, then do that. But the point here is that you don't want to get like so complicated, and you don't want your team to feel complicated that it's like, oh, well, we're just not going to do it. Keep it simple. You can do that today. Just look at your business and say, what are things that really are just too complicated, and scrap it and find the most simplest way to do it. Yeah. Even a CRM, I had Salesforce in my business, and you guys know, first of all, Salesforce is very robust and I love it as a CRM, and it really helped me, but it's just so robust that it was just, I had to learn, and we had to learn in the team how to make it work. Eventually, I began going back to a more simpler CRM like Pipedrive, which you just move it along. Now we're using Zoho, but the point here is find a simple way to do things. Don't make it too complicated, because then you won't want to do it. And then finally, but not least, is imperfect action is better than inaction. We've heard this is very cliche, but I want to give you permission to just start. Implement one of the things I just talked about that you can do this week, today, to move towards exceptional execution, and then just do it imperfectly, but do it exceptionally. And then again, go back to the difference between exceptional and perfect, but implement one thing. And then as you begin to grow, you think about those 6 capacities that I talked about. Start building your company with those capacities in mind, because remember, strategic execution gap is a big deal. It does impact your bottom line. It does impact your team, your organization. So you need to make sure that you are doing that. Yes, Shirley, too much. Sometimes it's just too much. It's like, I just too much. So those are the things that I would recommend you do, and make execution a priority for you. If Start with your getting your strategy written and on paper, your core strategic goals, all of those things, your values, everything, and do that. So I recommend taking that out. But then take a look at how you're executing, because a beautiful strategic plan is nothing if you're not executing it well. And so many problems, so many companies have great strategies, great executions on strategic plans, but they're not executing, and therefore there you go, the 67% of businesses failing through poor execution. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat right now. I would like if you would like to schedule something with me, the Calendly link is in there. Lovely is going to put that back in. Please schedule a conversation. I'll be happy to run through your execution and see where things are happening that may not be working very well in your business. And then also to recommend that you go and check out the founders check-in for the strategic planning, as well as the process mapping one. I think that was maybe done in April or May. I'm not really sure, but the link is there. And then also too, if you would like to start using a system that you can use to exceptionally execute, I'd love for you to consider 90IO. We've just started a new relationship with them, and they're now using my actual strategic implementation plan and strategy planning. It was been employed into their system, and so anyone that wants to use my thing and they want to use it through me, then they can use that. And so it's a really great tool. I taught most of it during that, so you can definitely send me a chat, send me a DM, send me an email, and then just let me know if you're interested in doing 90IO. But nonetheless, those are some tools that you can use to begin to do that. Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate you being here. You're very, very welcome. I'm so glad you were able to join. And again, if you guys connect with each other, Shirley, Terry, Andrea, I think it's Jessica that was with JWL company. So whoever, I didn't see your name, by the way, so that's why I'm assuming it's Jessica. Go ahead and connect with each other. Really, that's the only way that we grow as business owners. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. If not, we're going to end the day. Enjoy the rest of your July, and we will see each other in August. Okay, take care.